Hello, this is Angela Robinson, coming to you from Durham Technical Community College, here to talk about some key features in your Introduction to Programming Logic and Design course. In this video, I'll be talking about decision statements, if-then else, and the case statement. Decision statements list a condition, called a Boolean expression, and what to do if that condition is true or false. There are three ways of doing this. The first is the if-then statement. If-then statements, usually shortened to if statements, only tell the program what to do if something is true. Here is the syntax of the if-then statement in pseudocode. You start the statement with the if keyword, followed by your Boolean expression and the then keyword. On the lines that follow, you put your statements of what you want to do if the condition is true. Notice how these statements are indented. This is not only for readability purposes, but to show that they are part of the if statement. When you have all the statements you need to show the programmer to end the if statement with the end keyword. Here I have an example in both pseudocode and a flowchart, where I am evaluating the name entered into the program by the user to find the correct toothbrush for that user. In this example, the word name is actually the name of the variable that I used in the program. And notice how I have the name Angela in double quotations? That is because it is a string data type. All string data needs to be in double quotations when being used within code of a program. If the user typed in the name Angela, then we set the value of the toothbrush variable to Angela's brush. Again, this value is a string and has to be included between double quotations. The flowchart here was made in Raptor. It implies the keywords if, then, and end. The if keyword is implied when you encounter the diamond symbol of the flowchart and evaluates the Boolean expression inside of it. After evaluating, the program follows either the yes or no side of the decision. When the two sides meet up again, right here, that is when the end if statement is implied. You may have guessed that the if-then else statement takes the if-then statement to the next level. Therefore, it is also referred to as the if statement. The way to know if you need to use this more advanced if statement is if you need to do something completely different if the condition is false. In other words, it not only tells the program what to do if the condition is true, but also what to do if the condition is false. Here is the syntax of the if-then else statement. Like the if-then statement, you start off with the if keyword, followed by the Boolean expression and the then keyword. Again, in the lines that follow, you put the statements of what to do if the condition is true. What comes next is different from before. Instead of the end if keywords, you put the else keyword. Notice how it is not indented, although this keyword is part of the if statement. It is not part of the statements of what to do if the condition is true. That is why we push it back even with the if keyword. This keyword is the word the program looks for if the condition is false. It doesn't perform anything that is between the then keyword and the else keyword. After the else keyword, you go back to your indented statements. Only this time, the statements tell the program what to do if the condition is false. It is after these statements that you put the end if keywords. Let's go back to the finding the toothbrush example. Just like before, if the user put in Angela for the name, then the variable toothbrush becomes Angela's brush. However, if the user did not put in Angela, the toothbrush becomes new brush. I've also updated the Raptor flowchart to show the new brush assignment to the variable toothbrush. Before we go on to the third decision statement, I want to talk to you about nested statements. Some may argue that nesting is a fourth kind of decision statements. In my opinion, nesting is a way of utilizing the if statement in a more complex way. An if statement is considered to be a nested statement when you put it inside of another if statement. This is also called cascading your if statements. Here you see two if statements, one right after the other. This is fine if you have a small program. But if you have a large program, this is considered to be inefficient by utilizing resources of the computer that don't always need to be used. There is also another reason why you should utilize nesting. Here you see that if the user puts in the name Angela, The variable toothbrush would be set to Angela's brush after checking the name variable against Angela. However, the program then goes on to check if the user entered Aiken for the name. We know that the user didn't put that in, so it follows the no side of that second if statement, which puts the value of toothbrush to new brush. I don't want a new brush, I want my brush. Therefore, the end result of toothbrush should be Angela's brush. To avoid getting the wrong results, we nest the second if statement into the first one in the else section, or no side. Here, I show how that looks in the Raptor flowchart. Here is the pseudocode for the nested statement. Again, take note of the indentations to show what statements belong to which if statement. Case statements take the decision process to an even more complex level. If you find yourself nesting several if statements due to many choices, you may consider using a case statement. Some languages refer to case statements as switch statements. For the syntax of a case statement, you start with the select keyword, followed by the item that you are comparing. Below that, you list the cases in which your item is to be compared to. If your item equals out to the first value, then the program performs the statements listed under that case number. If not, it goes on to check the item against the next case value. If you have something that you want to do when the item doesn't equal to any of the case values, then you can put in the default case. Default case is optional, and when used is only executed if all of the above cases are false. Here is the pseudocode of a case statement, which I used in my brushing teeth program, for picking what kind of toothpaste to use. I displayed the question asking what kind of toothpaste the user wants to use, and the choices to choose from. After the user inputs their choice, I compare that to the different cases. If they didn't choose any of them, I put the default to Other. Here, I show the flowchart for that same case statement. Since Raptor doesn't have a case statement symbol, I made this chart in Microsoft Visio. Let's review what we have learned about in this video. Take a minute to answer the questions on the next few slides. The answers will show up about 5 to 10 seconds after the question shows. If you need more time than that to come up with your answer, pause the video before the answer shows.